When this thing came in, it's got a massive oil leak, oil just pouring out of this side door in the rear engine compartment, coming out of the top of the door, just a ton of oil. I've never seen an oil leak come out the side of a door like that. So we're gonna have to do some looking into that. Well, we can't get the suspension to come up on this bus. It's running. We got the air pressure up to 120 PSI, but none of the suspension is up. So somebody has messed with something, changed it from the factory settings somehow. Now we got to try and dig into this and find out what's going on. Well, I talked to the bus owner. He said, try turning the house batteries on, and that maybe that'll trip a relay and have the leveling system come up. So we did that. We turned these batteries to on. They've been off since he dropped the bus off. We turned it on and the bus still didn't air up. And then I got in there with a voltmeter. It turns out the house batteries are dead. Once we charged the house batteries, it aired up. Yeah, so even with these two battery switches all the way off, those batteries still drained down. And then we couldn't air the bus up because of that. That was really a tricky one. For somebody to take a factory system like that and convert it to something so complicated that requires extra stuff just to be able to air up, that's crazy. So back here in this closet, there's a panel here with a switch for auto and manual and some up and downs, toggles for you to raise the suspension on here. But this is how you have to have this. It has to have power way back here in a closet in the back of the bus. So I'd have never found that without calling the owner. That's really kind of a very complicated way to do it. I would think you'd want that up by the driver, because if you forget about this and you leave it in the manual mode, you can drive down the road and you're gonna have to pull over or have somebody else with you to come back here and flip it. That should be by the driver. Get under there. I'm crawling under here to check the kingpin, and the first thing I notice is this radius rod bushing is like out. So the bar is like twisted and weird, and then I look at the other end, the bolt is broken off. It's not even there. So this is dangerous here. I have to get that all fixed up. Get my light up here. Let's see what's going on here. Go ahead and wiggle it. It's just up and down shim play. The kingpins, the bushing's not bad at least. That's good, thank you. Airbags are a little dry rotted. But that is a big concern. Can't tell, is it just missing or is it broken? It's not supposed to be able to come out with that tab on there. That's why I just assumed it was broken. So those cracks in the airbag are a little worse. What's it along the bottom? The bolt is broken off in there. this side of the radius rod bushing looked like new, and that side looked like that. That doesn't make sense. We'll figure out the mystery in a minute. You want me to tighten it?
Just gonna bump it a little.
Move those out one more so they grab better. Yeah, go slow with it though. Come. That's right. Put it in reverse. You'll be able to get a good grip on it now though. So you got it way off center, so because you're letting that one touch the outside flange.
Axle moved.
Yeah. Okay, stop. There's definitely twisting in there. Or is it welded?
That should feel solid. Pretty sure that's a welding. I might have tried the weld bolt head to it. Yeah, for some reason.
This has definitely been welded on, so it's actually the broken part of the stud is welded into place right now. So even if we did try and, I mean, it's no big deal to weld on it. We would put a nut over this, try and weld it to get it out, but it's actually welded to it here. But the big problem is that they left it like that. They just sent it down the road with only one bolt on there. That's crazy. So we're trying to cut it back a little bit so we can try to weld a nut to it, and I'm gonna see if I can maybe just get this whole new part so we're not wasting, you know, if we waste 4 hours of labor trying to get that bolt out of there, it's cheaper to get the new part. It's just U-bolts on. Okay, move it. There's a lot of play. Stemco cap or something is definitely leaking here. It's slinging everything everywhere too on this tag. I can see that rear radius rod. See the shiny metal there? That tells you the rod's been moving back and forth in there. shock, I wiggled it. It's a little bit loose. The suspension stays up for several hours, so I don't think that's an issue. That airbag is newer than this airbag. Get in here with the soap in a little bit. There's definitely a little bit of a rear end leak. Definitely has some movement there. Go kind of extreme with it.
Just didn't want to rip it off the jack.
Yeah. Okay. About the same as the other side. This huge leak coming out of the door here. I mean, it's coming all the way out the top. It's all over the top of the air filter here. On top of the muffler. Pull this air filter out of here and get a better look at what's going on. Might be something spraying up in that area because it's even kind of on that air intake. It might not be as serious as I think it is, but the spring right there is broken. Right there, this hook's there. This is a 8v92TA. So it's got the turbo on top, obviously, and then when you see this line, this coolant line that goes in under the blower there, that's the aftercooler. Getting this air filter out ain't no picnic. Actually having to remove the mounts to it. Getting it back in is going to be real fun. That rubber boot still on it?
Or something.
That's crazy.
That's where your compressor line goes.
Oh. Well, it's really leaking in here. This is a valve cover? I mean, the alternator's relatively dry. All that clean spot on that valve cover makes me think it's leaking out of there. This way. 'Cause everything is wet.
Talking about the top line right there.
that metal one there, where it hooks right there, it's wet over there in the alternator. But you would think it would be a lot more drippy over that way if that's what it was. But stuff is wet. That wall coming back is wet. The fact that the ceiling is wet in here is crazy. The super clean area of that valve cover tells me something's been running down a lot. But then it's very drippy under here.
I guess the outside view, not this side. Let's move. There's a gap there now. Let's move it now.
We want to spray some coil around those U-bolts and let them sit a little longer. Now that it can run down with gravity this way, maybe let it sit overnight. Maybe the shafts we'll clean up with some sandpaper too, so when it goes through those holes, it'll be a little easier. You see that bushing that just came out? Hold it next to the where it's supposed to be. That's definitely a little bit messed up. It's all cleaned up. That's taken apart. We're the new parts out for delivery today. We're going to replace the bolts too. We're not even the one bolt that was still good, that had too much stress on it. We're not going to reuse it. Just got it. Everything's heavy. New part in from new old stock from Luke at US Coach.
I don't know, because I couldn't see the other side.
All three of those things are leaking back there. It's progressively worse, but and this tag axle is leaking here. The valve for the tag axle. A lot of glare on the gauge up here. Is that big air leak gone by the tag?
Yeah.
That other stuff you tightened down, is that a lot less? I'm a minute in, I'm still right on 110, maybe 109. I don't see the line for 110, it's way over there. So, we're doing good up here. Okay, fire it up. Once the oil started to get warm and thinned out a little bit, that's when it started dripping from this oil sending unit up atop. So this is what's been causing that big leak. It's running down onto the valve cover, and then the fan motion has been blowing it backwards and everything. So once we got, it didn't do it when it was just idling or even revved up with thicker oil, but once it thinned out and got some heat into it, that's where it started leaking from. And then it's just running down all along the top. So not as crazy tight as the rear ones were. That's pretty far out of adjustment. Threads out at the end are a little bit gold. Mess when it's grease and oil mixed together. Is there marks on there? Or is that just the grease?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, that's not good. Let's go get it cleaned up and we'll take a look at the whole thing. So definitely some super bad ones in there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sounds pretty. Probably enough to view it. Jesus. Keep spinning you around. I suspect, hang on a second, let me go. Can you turn it?
Mm-hmm.
Come in close and focus. That was not long before that was going to be a real problem. That's horrific. My focusing ability is terrible. There we go. Yeah, that thing is shot. All those edges are like that. The race has got some chunks out of it too. It's probably more. I had Had the outer nut on super tight. Now he's having a hard time even getting the inner nut off because they've stretched the threads on that spindle. That sucks. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Smooth and shiny. We're getting cleaned up and look at it. It looks like I see a ridge in the race from here. It might just be grease though, because it's grease with oil added to it. The seal's been leaking with just grease in there too. But, the amount of wear in the race. We're gonna replace the bearings in races. All right, so here's the bearing. Cleaned up a little bit more. There's a bunch of sharp edges. We're going to cut it apart because I can see the inside race is really bad too. So we'll cut it real quick. Go ahead and pop, take a screwdriver and just pop one more, two more out, and then it'll come apart. Just pull with your fingers, you'll get it. I just can't do it with one hand. obviously all
Junk.
I do have a new set of manifold gaskets already here for it. So we'll get these put on there. The torque setting on them is 30 to 35 foot-pounds, so you don't want to go crazy with them. But yeah, we'll get these on there next. That'll help with that exhaust leak. Somebody didn't have the right spanner for this, and they used a chisel to get that off. Not just on the outside edge, but look at they did it on the little nipple. That's crazy. Freaking idiots. Tap it with a hammer. I usually pop it off. Like put a chisel up against the clamp and it hit. And then hit that with a hammer. There it goes. So is the stud coming out or is the nut turning? That's the question. Because we don't want the stud to come out.
Stud's moving.
Okay, so just got to loosen it just enough to slide that.
Yeah. So that one got shit in it.
That was leaking at both ends of it were leaking. If you use the wrench, we can see through it and see if it's the nut spins. The stud's coming out with the nut on it. And it's in the water jacket, so you don't want that to come out. Very good. Yeah, it's working. Put some Croil on it. Going with a longer wrench, huh? It looks like the oil leak that was coming down from above, that sending unit up there was dripping down on there, running down here, And then because that valve cover was so bad, or that manifold gasket was so bad, the oil was actually leaking into it when it was sitting. And then once it was running, then it was blowing that oil off before it would get warm enough to start burning it. That moisture's not from the cylinder. That's what's leaked in from out here. See how that gasket's all rusted. So you can see how that gasket's all rusted over there.
Mm-hmm.
This is homemade. I'm guessing because when they did the Jake brake valve cover, they needed one that was longer. So they welded it together. But as long as it's the right height and it squishes the bushing enough. Is this the passenger side or the driver's side?
Passenger.
Okay. That side doesn't look like it was leaking at all, does it? Yeah, that's crazy though. Never seen a homemade one. His Jake brakes aren't working, but I see something here. That spring I noticed that was broken is laid across here, and they have a switch here. So when you're on the throttle, that switch is moving over. And I'm wondering if that spring was catching up on it and not letting it click on and off. I hear it clicking every time I do that though. But I have messed with the spring. I've never seen anybody do a Jake brake switch like that, because you don't want the Jakes to be on when you have fuel going to it. So that means it's off, that means it's on. That's interesting. So even though I heard that clicking right there, it clicks, but if I push it, so it might not just be making enough contact there. I might have to push that a little bit further. I'll have to get an electric meter and voltmeter and figure that out. I'll have to see what's going on with these pipes, because they've got foil tape wrapped around them and they're still leaking. They're going to leak even more once now we have the boost issue fixed on it. We're going to go ahead, I talked to the owner, we're going to replace the exhaust manifold gasket on this side just because it's the same age, and now that we're fixing the other one, it's going to have more pressure behind it. It's more likely to blow out. But hopefully that pipe doesn't need to be replaced. Although that's the good one, that's the cheap one. That's the $200 one versus the $800 one. Well, this bus had a lot of horrific things happening on the steer axle. This is the side that had the bad radius rod. This is the side that had the super, super bad bearing on it. Just crazy. This is the side, this is the bad side of the bus, period. This is the side that had a massive oil leak. So we're at the end of week one here. We're pretty far into this bus. Got a lot to go. We're getting ready to do, we got the valve covers off and ready to do the tune-up on the engine in there, and then we're going to investigate what's going on with the Jake brakes. We'll do the tune-up on the Jakes as well. That whole setup that they have with that switch on there, I mean, that's not the way you do Jake brakes. That would kill the engine too. Once it would bring it down. You know, normally they cut out about 1100 RPM or so, 1200 RPM. This would let it go all the way down to 0. But it does stop it from adding when the fuel's on, which is good, but that's not the right way to do it. We need to have a Jake brake buffer switch that goes into there. We'll see if we can locate one of those from them and actually get it hooked up correctly. Locating parts is always going to be the hardest part of that. This does have the fast idle, so that's a little bit of a different buffer switch that goes on there than some. So, but we'll get into it. We'll do the tune-up next week. We got parts coming in left and right now, so we're doing good. I got to talk to the owner about the airbags and see what he wants to do. If that's preventative maintenance, he wants to go ahead and just replace them all, because there's quite a bit of dry racking. They're all old age. It's a crapshoot. You never know one's gonna just go out. If he doesn't want to replace them, I suggest he at least carries a couple of spares with him, so that he doesn't end up down somewhere because of that. But yeah, quite a bit of work going on this bus. That was week one, and we'll have another video probably next week of this one.
smoke rising up the holler through the trees. And from a mile away, you can hear them play as they climb that hill with ease. At the top of that mountain, there's a new life waiting for those who can make the run. If they can make it to the top, Scott will put them in the shop till their new life has begun. Bus Grease Mountain, where the buses come to run. Bus Grease Mountain, we're gonna get that big job done.